welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to tell you what I read in the month of April as part of the magical readathon. If you haven't already, please check out my part 1 where I talk about all the other books that didn't count for the readathon. But these are the books that I've successfully managed to complete. So I managed to complete 6 out of the 7 challenges that I set myself. I unfortunately DNF'd one of the books that I put on my original TBR. I am going to make a separate video about books that I'm DNF'd, probably at a bit later date when I've got more to talk about, but I did unfortunately DNF one of the books. But apart from that, I felt like I had a super successful time with the readathon. This is more than I've read in a long time in the space of a month, so I'm considering it really successful. I know the current situation kind of lends itself to more reading, but I'm still going to count it as a success. So the first challenge that I completed was to read a book completely at night time. That was for astronomy. I've got my notebook here just because I forget which challenges count for which. So astronomy, and this was And Then the Ocean Was Our Sky by Patrick Ness. This was kind of like a whimsical graphic novella sort of thing that was a retelling of Moby Dick. I really enjoyed the story. I thought that the way it was written was kind of quite whimsical, and it had that kind of like rocking motion. It really did make me feel like I was at sea. However, in terms of the illustration style, it got on my nerves a little bit because you would read the story and then you would have 3 or 4 pages of beautiful illustration. Now, although beautiful illustration was great, it did take me out of the story a little bit, and I really struggled to get back into it, so I found it was quite a broken up, bitty reading experience. But however, it was really whimsical. I didn't like it as much as A Monster Calls, which is Patrick Ness's other book that's kind of in this style. However, it was perfectly enjoyable, and I think I rated it 3 stars. I can't remember all of my star ratings, but if I can remember them, I'll include them. But yeah, 3 stars. The next book was for charms, and it was to read a book with white on the cover, and I picked Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. This follows the story of Nadia, and it follows a world where there are 2 types of magic. There is blood magic, and then there is some sort of magic that involves the gods. And there is a war, like a holy war, raging between these 2 cities and these 2 types of magic, because the god, I don't know what it's actually called. The people who use gods, summon gods to summon their magic, think that the blood magic is heretical, and it is a very much a holy war theology inspired inspiration, and the heretics in this story actually get magic by drawing blood and then consulting a spell book. However, Nadia, our main character, can actually speak to the gods to conjure up her magic, and that is why her magic is so special. She's very much a chosen one, and it follows kind of like the politics of this story with a corrupt king, and they both want to end the kind of war that is going on between these 2 nations. This was a very promising read. This is Emily A. Duncan's first book, and I thought that the storyline was so unique and it was so great. Like, I have never read a magic system kind of like it. I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to try and get my hands on the 2nd book in the series. But I had a couple of problems with it, but overall it was a really promising story, and I think that Emily has a lot of kind of space to develop the magic and develop the fantasy world a little bit more. I did feel like it was a little bit underdeveloped, but also if it's the start of the series, it's just kind of like a taster into, you know, what is going on. But the premise of this story and the characters definitely suckered me in, and it did end on a cliffhanger. I did enjoy it. The next book I read was for Muggle Studies, and that was a contemporary, and I read Solitaire by Alice Oseman. This follows the story of Tori, and she is trying to kind of investigate who is behind this online persona called Solitaire. I think that's kind of like the crux of the story, but it also follows Tori and kind of her family dynamic, and I really enjoyed this. Obviously, Alice Oseman has also written Heartstopper, which is sort of a spin-off to Solitaire. It covers Nick and Charlie, who do like feature in this book quite a lot actually. But I really enjoyed this. First of all, I really enjoyed the British 6th form setting. Quite often you hear a lot of like an American setting, American high school, but this, like the quintessential British like sixth form setting, I really enjoyed and thought that it was quite unique for this sort of genre. I sort of liked the character of Tori. She got on my nerves sometimes. I just felt sometimes that she was a little bit like... The only way I can describe it is manic pixie dream girl, kind of like Alaska from Looking for Alaska. So sometimes she irritated me and I just wanted to shake her and be like, just be nice, just accept people. But I guess that's part of the story. Overall, I really love Alice's writing, and I really always enjoy the representation in her books. This obviously wasn't perfect, but also no book is. I think I say that in every video, but it was really enjoyable, and I can't wait to read the next 2 books that Alice has released, and I know that she's got quite a couple lined up as well, so very good. Next book was for Transfiguration, and I read House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas. So I've already talked about this book in like my favourite videos. I've already gushed about it in vlogs. It's just so good. This is Sarah J Maas's new adult fantasy series, House of Earth and Blood. It's going to be a series. I loved it. Do I need to say any more? This follows the story of Bryce, who lives in a world where werewolves, witches, shapeshifters, angels, all of that sort of thing exists, and it's in an urban fantasy setting. And at the beginning of our story, something happens to the main character and her best friend, and Bryce is trying to investigate why that happened and what the hell is going on. She finds corruption, she finds love. It's so good. I loved this book. It really took me by surprise, and I think just is so good. I just loved the characters, I loved the setting, I loved kind of like the way magic was interwoven in the world. I thought it was so good. This is a new favourite. I don't think I need to say any more. The next book was for recommendation, and that is to read a book from a genre that you don't normally read. I picked Convenience Store Woman by, I'm going to butcher this, Saka Morta, and this follows the story of a convenience store woman, a lady who works in a convenience store. She has worked there part-time ever since she went to university, and even though she graduated long ago and is nearly 30, she still hasn't got a new job. And it's about just being happy with your existence, and it just follows her life, and the way that it is written is just so great. Like, I really loved the writing style, and I really loved the main character in this story. This does live up to the hype. It is a short, quirky, cute read, and there's not much more I can say about it. It doesn't it doesn't have like a huge like complex plot line. It is just a beautifully written, quirky piece of fiction that I think everybody should read. And the final book I read for Magical Readathon was for History of Magic, and I picked and read Night Country by Melissa Albert. This is a sequel to The Hazelwood, and it continues to follow the story of Alice, and it's a very kind of like whimsical fairy tale story, kind of set in New York, but also has this kind of like alternate reality where fairy tale characters exist. This sequel was okay. Literally just okay. I don't really think this needed to happen. I felt like The Hazelwood finished everything off quite nicely, and this book was a lot darker than the first book, and I really enjoyed the mystery element of the story, and I really enjoyed visiting and revisiting some of the characters that I fell in love with, if not in Hazelwood. However, I don't feel like in terms of plot and in terms of action this book was as strong. I just kind of felt it was a bit lackluster. I kind of wish that she would have done more with the magical setting. It was a bit of a letdown for me. It was a bit of a 3-star. It was alright, but you know what? I've read it. I probably won't carry on with the series if there's any more, but it was quite entertaining and overall quite enjoyable. So those are the books that I read for the Magical Readathon. It's been quite a stack, and I've got quite a mess going on now. Let me know in the comments down below how you did in the owls, and if you enjoy being around here, please subscribe. I would love to have you here, and I would love to ramble about books with you. But have a good day, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye. you.